It is now the final day of Group B, Contenders Trials North America. Labasco here alongside of Thibbledork, and we've got a banger of a game for you. It determines who gets in the second spot of this group. It is going to be Cratos versus Infamous and Thibbledork. This looks to be a pretty good one.
Oh, yeah. I love these games towards the end of the week where everything's on the line. You have two really evenly matched teams coming together, two teams that have shown that they have what it takes to make it to Contenders, but only one of them is going to get in. Cratos and Infamous both have beaten Last Hope and Susanoo this week and lost in Map 5 to Revival, the one team in this group that has made it to Contenders already with a perfect record this week. Great turnaround from them. They recently rebuilt and have been looking really good. But both of these teams putting up very similar stat lines all the way through and getting as close as can be to Contenders. So we're in for a banger, as you said.
Yes, we definitely are. And similar compositions we've seen from both of these teams as well. We've kind of seen a meta develop here with the most recent patch that came through. This is our first time seeing it at the Contenders Trials level, Thibble. And one of the things we know has been important is the Sombra play.
Oh, yeah. I mean, the 1v1s between the two Sombra players, in this case, I believe it's going to be Ultima Wep and Sai, is key. In addition to all the standard tips and tricks involved in a Sombra composition, farming EMP, getting those key hacks on targets to deny ultimates or cooldowns at a key moment or things like that. But Ultima Wep especially, I casted Kratos' game a couple days ago against Susanoo. Ultima Wep is really focused on the Sombra 1v1. He loves tracking down the enemy's translocator, really catching the other Sombra off guard and forcing them out that standard rhythm a Sombra gets where they move forward, they go farm, and then they go back with their translocator. He tries to break that kind of cycle in a way, and it's pretty effective, honestly. Ultima Wep has been around for so long that I think he's understood all of the rhythms that normally come into a matchup like that and knows how to break them. So that should be a big one for sure.
Yes, that's one of the things that we'll be paying attention to as we get ready for our first map, which is going to be Nepal here on the final day of Contenders Trials. The other matchup that we've been trying to make sure that we pay attention to is going to be the tank lineups for both of these teams, Thibbledork, and specifically, we know that there's been a lot of Rhine Zarya coming out from Cratos.
Yeah. I think a lot of teams have been running like a Sombra Reaper dive or even an Ashe Tracer dive. That's something I've seen from Infamous this week a good bit, especially on maps like Volskaya, where Ashe traditionally has been pretty popular. But the Rhine Zarya really speaks to Kratos' confidence in terms of running like a rush comp or a brawlier style more than like a dive or a poke comp,
right?
Which makes a lot of sense when you consider their scrim partners in the past couple months. They've actually been scrimming the Washington Justice, at least when the Justice were making their way through the playoffs, which, is a big one these days.
Right.
So getting in practice rounds and getting in those hours with a team that's running arguably the most explosive playoff team, except the ones that actually made it to the grand finals weekend. That's a big up for a Contenders Trials team.
Yeah.
This is not even a Contenders team right now. It is a Trials team. So for them to get that sort of practice in, I think it's going to speak a lot to the flexibility and the confidence with which they choose to engage against the compositions Infamous have been running this week.
And when we look at where we're going to start on Nepal 2, it's going to be a map where you can play those rush-style compositions on most of the spots. Obviously, there's going to be certain maps that are more catered to the dive, but when you look at where we're stopping here first on I always forget what this is. This is
Shrine.
Shrine. Okay, I was thinking it was Shrine. I was right. Shrine, you can play those dive comps or you can play that rush style really effectively for both of them. We're getting a pause here at the beginning, Thibble, but like you can play the rush here. Like the rush works really well here.
Oh yeah, I mean, it definitely just depends on kind of what the other team is running, perhaps, and then what you feel just counters that best. So coming in on Shrine, though, it looks like we might have remade and then gone to Sanctum instead.
Yeah. And we also have a player that's still not loaded in.
Yeah, this is the
Beautiful.
standard tier 2 shuffle. We'll get him in here,
Yeah.
we'll get the game going. This gives me more time to talk about these compositions these guys might
Yes.
run. So Sanctum, of course, is interesting because of the giant pit in the center. Much like Ilios Well, it really adds an extra dimension of you have to consider Lucio coming in and booping you. You have to worry about that. This is also a good place for a Wrecking Ball. Infamous have been running Wrecking Ball Sigma compositions with Akash on the Wrecking Ball and Gummy on the Sigma. So this could be a sub map or a stage. I don't know what they call them in Control, where Infamous actually
Point,
maybe
you
have
could
the
call it.
edge. Yeah, a
Yeah.
point. Just because they seem more ready to run Wrecking Ball focused comps over a traditional Winston Diva or a Ryan Zarya. That's not to say, of course, that Kratos are incapable. I know Borkin loves his Wrecking Ball. He had some great plays on it against Susanu. He loves borking people off the map, as he might say. And Crowley is no slouch either on a variety of flex tank heroes, most notably his Diva and his Zarya this week. But his Sigma's not bad either. I don't want to say, he lacks the depth of hero pool, because I think at this level and beyond, you can pretty confidently say any of these guys could swap to anything their team needs. Looking at the setups here, though, we've got Echo Sombra coming out from Infamous. Obviously, you can never tell if they're going to stick with that or not, but could be an interesting wrinkle. A little air control on the point could be just what they need to get the edge.
Well, they're going to go with that dive composition for the side of Infamous, who is going to be our green team throughout, and then in white will be the team in Cratos, and they are rushing that. They are playing that rush style, rushing around to that mega health pack where Infamous's team spawns from. So they take the long way around. Sai makes the switch back over, by the way, to that Echo, throws those sticky bombs in, and now controls the skies. And we're just watching right now Kratos just rotating around here at the beginning, kind of chasing these players who are kiting away on Infamous. We haven't really gotten anything yet. Default's able to finally get onto Akash, and they move on to this point, and now vie for control. Even up, though, Ultimate Weapon goes down, but the Diva without mech and without really any tanks to help, this is going to be tough for Infamous to come back in. Default teleporting away goes down, though, so there's still some room for Infamous to win this fight.
Oh yeah, especially with the boots coming through and everything. This is super back and forth. Kratos going for that initial rotation, hoping to catch the supports off guard, maybe hanging out in that backline area for Infamous. But they just kept rotating as well. So instead, Kratos flex towards the point, and they say, okay, we've got the supports kind of running scared. We have them backing away because of this big rotation we made. Let's just quickly rotate back onto the tanks, kind of catch them off guard, break up this ring around the Rosy rhythm that we've just established, and that's good enough to get that first capture. That adaptability and communication during the rotation phase is so huge in this meta right now, and in mirrors in general. That said, they're not quite mirrored. Switch coming online with a nano boost on the Ana. Kitty King 70% to the rally as we get a nano echo coming in on point.
Aggressively using that beam, gets a kill onto one, uses the ultimate to duplicate the Reaper, and now looks for the third kill onto the Moira in Fix. A very good re-engage coming through from Infamous. They will take this point right back.
And that was a great duplicate too. I mean, he was probably going to survive the Graviton because he was starting to get peel from the rest of his team, but Sai swapping to the Reaper allows him to Wraithwalk out of the Graviton again, and he has enough sustain from the lifesteal and the peel that he had just gotten from the rest of his team to stay alive, get enough time for his team to come back and establish themselves on the point. Far scouting out here on the Sombra, his Translocator was destroyed though, so he could be caught out right now by Crowley.
The Crowley is definitely gone, thanks to that nice snipe of the Translocator. So now they kind of have to wait around if they want to come in for Infamous and make sure that they can control this. They are going to use the Primal Rage, trying to knock those players off. Good charge to stay on by NA player 100. That is working, by the way. So a chance here, but Bar back into the fight, uses the EMP, catches everybody but 6 feet, so the EMP will keep everyone else up, but Default will still fall through it. So looking good still for Infamous in this fight, and now they get the Coalescence out of Fix.
6 feet positioned himself well to get the beat off and counter that EMP as best he could, but he didn't get it onto Default, and I believe Borkin as well. Borkin managed to stay alive just through sheer force of will and being healed by Fix. That said, of course, I have cursed him and he goes down. This is super back and forth here on the point.
Yeah, starting to come back in with their respawners is the side of Cratos, so a chance for them to maybe get this point back, but it's up to 75% for Infamous. So even if they were to lose right here, they're still sitting pretty. Have to worry about the Sombra, though, if you're Switch. Avoiding most of the damage, at least for the moment. Gets hacked out, though, because Ultimate Weapon is still there being a nuisance. The hack comes out the other way. Switch is able to stay alive through it, and now they're up to 93% for Infamous. Self-destruct available, too, for Gummy. And Sai was using the ult there, ends up getting out of it pretty quickly. They get this into overtime at the very least, force out the self-destruct too from Crowley, so they get a lot out from Cratos for Infamous here in that fight, and now they've got to win just one.
Right, nothing to complain about here just yet for Infamous, though it could be pretty close depending on how the ultimates go. Borkin swapping over to the Winston, I think he wants a little more decisive engagement, especially on Ana in that backline. The Sombra was doing a good job of distracting her and pulling cooldowns and costing time, but Ultimate Web actually almost getting caught out by far during that fight. So you got to be careful. They can't just jump on the backline 1v1 because the heal will come.
Yeah, had to get onto the point too because the flip almost came through for Infamous, but nothing to show for it yet. Any player gets really low, so they lose Borkin there to Kitty King, who hits him with the flail. Ultimate Weapon has that EMP coming into the fight now, throws it out, but the 2 kills come through for Infamous. The EMP not enough to turn this around decisively for Cratos, and Infamous will be able to get this point back. Just have to deal with the Wrecking Ball. What player gets knocked off? They get the flip, though, does Infamous. Ultimate Web has to come out of invisibility to get onto the point. Overtime meter slowly coming back. Can anyone get there? No, it will be Infamous striking first here in our control map, taking a 1-0 lead after the first point.
Infamous definitely in the driver's seat for most of that map there, maintaining good ult economy, the backline holding its own against the advances of Ultimate Web. You saw Switch there just kind of crouch dancing, juking and jiving and all that, and that gave him enough time to go, hey, there's a Sombra on me. I could use some help, please. Far comes over, hacks Ultimate Web. He's forced to back away. I'm pretty sure he died after that. So when you're trying to dive the backline, which is what Cratos were working on with that Winston Sombra sort of dual engage, you have to be able to kill them quickly enough to get away. Because if you give them time to call for help, that help is going to ruin your day, and you're not necessarily going to be able to get out, especially with a Sombra on the field on both teams. So their engagements need to be a little more decisive. They need to be a little quicker in their focus fire because they looked a bit spread out.
We get to go to Village now, though. So as far as the rush composition, this is one of the best maps for it, Thibble. So they get to play something they're a little bit more comfortable on and just play it in a map that actually helps them and is an advantage for them instead of the previous map where Sanctum kind of favors those dive teams a little bit more. Gummy playing on the opposite side, though, right now, trying to pressure down the Zarya of Cratos. Sai in the sky, beaming down Borkin, who is surrounded, not going to be able to live. They are without fix, though, is the only problem for the side of Cratos 2. They do get the flip, but it might not last long. Well, as I say that, Ultimate Web, who stayed on the Sombra, gets 2 kills and forces everyone back.
Yeah, I mean, the Sim there just charging up. Those long, sustained fights, no matter who else from your team is still alive, that Symmetric can put in major work. You saw right there, the tanks are down, the supports are going down. Ultimate Web does not care. Fully charged, microwave beam go burr. There's not much you can do. Now he has the ultimate, and like you said, this point, Village, really favors the compositions Cratos wants to be running. And they're doubling down with that with the Symmetra. They're saying, you have to come to us. All your poke, all your dive is not going to do much against us. That said, that EMP, pretty huge. And this fight is over.
Before it even began, I was going to say the one thing you were saying about them staying on that point, very susceptible to that EMP.
Yeah, and they're just bunched up because they have to be, because Lucio Moira demands that you run together within the aura, within the range of Moira's healing to get the most value out of it. But of course, an EMP coming in and sticky bombs coming in on top of that, there's just way too much cleave damage, not nearly enough defense. But if Infamous are only winning on EMP fights, it's not going to be enough.
It definitely isn't, especially because that's the only thing that you have. Kitty King, though, is able to get 6 feet at the beginning of the fight, so they have the advantage early on for Infamous, and they continue to build onto it with their Primal Rage. Sai getting Ultimate Wep down, so they don't have that microwave available anymore from the Symmetra. They're trying to split off these players for Infamous. They did get the flip, though, for Cratos, so they actually are building percentage right now, even though this has been a losing fight for them. So the one problem that Infamous is having is that they're not getting a lot of percentage control time, and they're still fighting this out for Cratos in a losing fight.
Yeah, I mean, super back and forth there. That shatter in fights like these, in these close, not quite mirrors, but very similar, I suppose, in terms of structure or status. There's a lot of times where you think, oh man, if I just hit this one ult, we clutch it out, even though we're down a couple. But the risk is, if you shatter into a Winston bubble, then you're losing and down an ultimate. So pretty major loss for Cratos, actually. They have their support ults, the Death Blossom and the Self-Destruct, but they were hoping to have maybe a little more coming into this next fight.
Rally on the other side for Infamous, who is running that Brigitte. They just back away right now, just trying to kite away from Kitty King's ultimate. They're just baiting that out. So now they will start to come in now that that ultimate is over. Bar with the EMP, patiently waiting, though, looking to make sure to get both of those supports. 6 feet gets hit. He does hit at least 6 feet, though. Vix was still able to keep the Coalescence up, is the only problem, and now they can advance towards the point. And now it's Default getting on, has that Death Blossom, pops it here, uses the sound barrier as well to make sure that he stays alive through it, but he gets slept while he's using the Death Blossom. Infamous still in a good position to maintain control of the point, but Ultimate Weapon and 6 feet. They don't want to see this end just yet for Cratos on this first map as we hit the overtime. Crowy so low, has to use the Self-Destruct in desperation to stay alive, gets back into the mech, keeping healed up. They need to keep this going for Cratos if they want a chance to win this map.
Yeah, and I mean, just even getting that point back is huge. The EMP coming online, Default swapping to the Tracer. It looks like Cratos will be able to hold on here and start building up some percentages, especially with that Coalescence coming through. But that was costly, and they're not done yet. Infamous coming in with the EMP here. They are not afraid to try and recontest this. They want this map.
Stopped the Coalescence by using that EMP. Now you have the ultimate sort of evening out to Thibble because nobody really has anything. Kitty King with the rally is closest.
With the rally, Default also with the Pulse Bomb. They build that awful quick. The rally, though, is huge because it's going to help out against the Winston, especially. All that extra armor mitigating the small ticks of damage could be the edge they need. That said, if Cratos can stay alive long enough or get a good stick on the Pulse Bomb to build up the support ultimates and sustain in a longer fight, which is what they've been looking for this whole time. I say that, of course, and curse them. Ultimate Up goes down. This might be rough for Cratos.
And now they can just rally in. They have so much at their disposal for Infamous to get this point back and get control. But the stick coming out onto Default, from Default onto Kitty King, might be the first domino to keep Cratos in front on this point. Slept, though, was working, so it evens back out. Side decides to duplicate the Diva on the Echo. Has the Self-Destruct that can be thrown onto the point to try and force these players away, but it's Cratos who's winning this fight. Self-Destruct onto the point to try and get it back. Beaming down one is Sai staying in it, but Cratos flips this back. The overtime meter goes quickly, and we will have to find our winner on the final point here of Nepal.
Such great stall coming out from Sai. He's definitely been stepping up, and Echo in this meta has honestly been doing quite a lot of work, duplicating to a Diva for some key stall, but ultimately just not enough. The rest of his team was all falling down around him. Ultimo Web got back quick. He's Sombra. He's just scooting back over to the point. He had the EMP. Default getting the stick onto Kitty King halfway through the rally. I don't think... again, getting into those longer sustained fights, I don't think Infamous really had the edge there. And unfortunately for them, Shrine is another one that kind of favors those brawly compositions on the point. There's a lot of cover available for the Echo. That said, Sai could get in on some cheeky flanks, and he certainly has not been afraid to get in there in the thick of things to start throwing sticky bombs.
Well, before we get to that, we're going to have a pause, Thibble. So we're going to have to wait here at least for a moment. And while we have a moment, we can see that Default made that switch over to the Tracer pretty late, but looks like it might be sticking here. Obviously, they're still in spawn, but it took a lot for Cratos to kind of figure out what they needed to do to win there. And it looks like they're going away from the rush composition again.
Yeah, I think they're seeing the value of the dive tanks. The fact that you really need to engage, especially with Switch on the Ana so consistently, you really you can't just let her hang out in the back there. You cannot have a composition that says, hey, come to me, because the Ana is the master of, it doesn't matter where you are. I can heal you and I can do damage to you. I don't have to be in there, throwing hands. I can be all the way back. So swapping to those dive tanks is really going to be the only way they can contest that major healing, the sleeps, the CC, and the damage boosting, of course, from the nano boost as well. I think it's a decent adaptation. I think Ultima Web on the Symmetra, I don't know if he stays that, obviously. We're just in the beginning phases of the round.
Probably goes to the Sombra, right?
That's what I figure. The Sombra is kind of a must-have at this stage.
Mm-hmm.
But it was getting some value in the beginning there on Village, setting it on point, throwing the turret down, microwaving. Obviously, the big wall is very useful on these points. But yeah, the Tracer swap actually is kind of intriguing to me if they keep it. It's kind of weird to think that Tracer might be the counter to Brigitte in these compositions, which you and I being old guards of Overwatch here, when Brigitte was the consummate Tracer eraser, ever being able to utter the sentence Tracer counters Brigitte sounds wrong.
Yeah. Like the whole construction of Brigitte was around beating Tracer too.
Yeah.
So the shield to avoid most of that burst damage if you're looking at her. Yeah, like it is kind of a weird thing to kind of think about. Well, you know what's not weird though, Thibble, is getting back into the game. That's
That
one
is
thing that's
definitely
not
not
weird.
weird.
And that's what
That
we get to
is-
do here right now, because these teams are coming back in. Infamous is going to be running, it looks like, the Sombra and the Echo once again. So we get to see more Echo play, and it is Sombra Tracer for Cratos.
Yep, looks about right. Default, I think, just wants to be able to deal a little more damage than he was able to on the flanks and in the backline as well. They need to have those more decisive engages and the quicker kills on the backline. Tracer is perfect for that. Way more mobile, way higher burst. So I think it's a good adaptation for Cratos.
Especially onto the Ana too, thinking about the Ana that they have there in the backline side, beaming down, but nobody low enough for it to really have a great effect. Control goes to Cratos first again. Nice sticky bombs onto 60, who was trying to get out of that area. So now you have an advantage over for Infamous. Now they have to push it though, and that's been one thing that they've been a little bit slow to do, at least on that last map in Village. They're starting to get onto that point now, but the re-engage from Cratos is huge. Use of the EMP to stop that coalescence, even fight out. It's still in control for Cratos for this point, but it's finally Infamous who will be able to take it.
So, yes, Cratos lose this fight, and they're stalling a little bit, but it's not going to be for much longer. The thing I want to point out is the reinforcement of the point that I've been making about Cratos and their decisive engagements and their higher burst in those windows. By the time Borkin had hit the ground, 2 people had died. He and Ultima Web had killed 2 people. And yes, they were softened up a bit, but I think the team as a whole is getting into that focused fire mentality of we need to take down their carry supports in the backline here and get the work done.
Out comes the EMP from Ultima Web, and it is used effectively by Cratos. Already 2 players down, but Ultima Web loses his life afterwards. Sai now farms up EMP using that duplicate on the Echo. Manages to hack 2 of the players that are left for Cratos, so there's still a good shot for Infamous to hold on to this point, and that's exactly what they're going to do.
Oh yeah, they're definitely going to hold, and that wasn't even that expensive either. I believe they used the nano boost towards the beginning of the fight, the rally halfway through, and then the duplicate as well. But they're holding pretty decisively. An extra EMP, the value of that cannot be understated.
Speaking of an extra EMP, Far's about to get to another one. Did get hacked out, though, right before being able to get that, so can't translocate away. So Cratos, with their recontest here in this extended fight, starting to turn the tables to get this point flipped back in their favor. Up to 60%, though, for Infamous, and they're stalling out here for a little bit longer to make this, get close to that 70% mark before the flip comes through.
Yeah, good little stall, but a nice re-engage there from Cratos, focusing down the supports. The tanks melt right after that, and you can just clean up the DPS after. That said, we talk about just the strength of the Echo in this composition, but we need to talk specifically about Sai on the Echo in this competition, because he is doing insane amounts of work. Tons of cleave, really fast duplicates, and strong value off of them at the same time.
Speaking of translocating, not going to be able to do that is going to be Far, because it was spotted out by Ultima Web. So Cratos able to win another fight and negating anything that Infamous was going to come in with because of finding where Far's translocator was. And now we're getting close to that last fight territory.
And I brought that up before the match even started. Ultima Wep loves surprising the enemy Sombra, taking out the translocator and being where the other Sombra wouldn't expect a Sombra to be. And that is enough to get the opening pick and finish a fight before it starts. Now they're well past Infamous in terms of percentage.
But now it's all about the ultimate usage here. Default will get the Pulse Bomb kill, and Kitty King switches down to no supports available for the side of Infamous. Far extremely low, but that's okay. The supports being out could be the difference for Cratos in making sure that they win this point and win this match. Self-destruct comes through from Psy to get one. Fixed with the Coalescence, though, and Ultimate Weapon finishing off another. Kitty King trying desperately to get back, but the Primal Rage will be popped to throw Kitty King away, but Kitty King still able to get there for Infamous and keep this map going. Sleep on to NA player, but they can't hold on to the point for Infamous, and Cratos will win map number 1.
A good start for Infamous, but ultimately the little adaptations coming through from Cratos were really what did it. Swapping to the Tracer for those more decisive engages, the quicker kills on the backline, which stayed vulnerable. Brigitte is not the hero that she was when she launched, when she had a shield as strong as Sigma's and a hammer as strong as Reinhardt's, and she could do everything, and she was a tank, a DPS, and a support all rolled into one, and she built her ultimate every 10 seconds. Those days are gone, and Brigitte can still do a lot, even after all the nerfs that she's had, which are manyfold. But it's easier now than ever to counter a Brigitte. Even with a Tracer, the hero that was always supposed to be countered by her, which was deleted from the meta by the existence of Brigitte. Now that is a hero that can go toe-to-toe with her, especially given how smart these teams are about cooldown management and watching to see when the CCs are down and when your openings are. The game has evolved. And Brigitte is still a part of it, but much smaller than before. You must be careful running those sorts of compositions because you risk getting adapted on so quickly. And that's all it took. They started so strong, and then the next two maps, they were almost a non-factor. So I want to see something new coming out as we get on to Anubis for our second map.
Yeah, Anubis where we're going to go next. We'll see if teams switch sides or not. We haven't seen that just yet, but looking at it right now, a very good position for Cratos after how it started for Infamous. They've adapted well, which was one of the things that we kind of were highlighting beforehand, is that they are a very good team at adapting.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I think this meta now, meta in air quotes, of course, it's not set still.
Yes.
It's very map specific, which I think is a great thing. I like that there's variability and that there's no one clear answer, because when that happens, we enter the goat zone, and I'm good. I loved goats, but I think we're good. We don't need another one of those. We don't need a Sigma Zarya or a Sigma Orisa, excuse me. We need that variance on a map to map or even stage to stage sort of basis. So the team in a meta like this, the team that will prosper is the team that can adapt on the fly, even one swap of a hero or even one swap of a way a hero is played. Ultima Wep I'll bring up again as that kind of guy who plays Sombra. Sure, Sombra's been played on both of these teams and most of the teams we've seen this week, but the way he plays it, that little adaptation, that slight variance in playstyle is proving to be the difference in some pretty key fights. So Infamous, for me, need to start thinking about what wrinkles they can throw in to throw Cratos off. The Echo is great. I love the Echo, and Psy is doing work. There is no denying that. Switch and Kitty King are not bad supports. They are not putting up bad performances on these heroes. But I think Cratos are starting to get the download on the way that Infamous want to run this sort of game. The Tracer swap, the swap from Rhine to Winston again. Fix now on the Ana as well, though they could swap right now. I think the adaptations are coming through a little quicker for Cratos, and that's going to be a big deal in this series.
Well, let's see what the answer is then from Infamous, with them starting out on defense here. Still the team in green, of course. Infamous still our team in white. And Fix is actually going to make that switch back over to the Moira. So they actually go back, but they are keeping those dive tanks. They're keeping the Tracer as well. And they've got Ultima Wep kind of set up here, looking for the hat, gets it onto Gummy. So now they don't have that defense matrix to sort of eat up some of that to keep some of those players alive. Ultima Wep with great reaction timing, heard the hat coming onto him and translocates away. So able to stay in this one. Cratos is starting to advance towards that point. They've pushed back Infamous.
It's crazy to think that the hack, I believe the hack casting time is like 0.65 seconds. And Ultima Web heard like the first note and was like, nah, I'm out of here. It's good. It's cool.
That's good reaction timing. That's what we're saying here is that's some nutty reaction timing on Ultima Web. Kind of a good weapon to have, that's for sure. Sai so close to going down. The Tesla cannon helping out to get that one down, and they've got 2 players out for Infamous, and the Primal Rage popped by Akash to try and get his team back into this one. But Infamous, they are losing too many players. They did get out that main healer, but they are so far away from spawn.
Just the focus fire allowed by the Tracer Sombra is nuts. Akash primaled and did not have a lot of time before he had 75 health left and had to run away screaming. Kratos are just putting out so much damage. Cannot be understated.
They throw out the EMP, now the Pulse Bomb too. There was the Nano Boost used on to Akash to keep him alive, but it wasn't enough. Gummy now, the only player left to try and stall, but it's a good first point take for the side of Kratos. Methodical and very deliberate with how they went.
Yeah, they took their time with it. They knew where they wanted to go. They did a good job of splitting Infamous up and having kind of 2 smaller fights happening at the same time, with Borkin just kind of bouncing around and cleaning up. And Akash did his best to kind of introduce some chaos of his own, but the communication from Kratos was just a little too strong there. Good stall for them, and to their credit, they have an ult advantage in a big way right now. Kratos played that pretty expensively on that first point, so it might be a bit, especially with 6 feet going down, before they can put together a good push on second.
Pretty big loss when you lose that speed from the Lucio, and you can see that they're just trying to draw back the beam. Oh, Sai and can't get away. Default's able to get the kill there. Nice burst down with the clip from the Tracer, and now they'll re-engage for the side of Kratos, trying to get onto those players, backing away. EMP will force Kratos back, though. Very good from Infamous, and Kitty King got that kill onto Default, who was really on an island by himself there at the end.
Oh yeah, just kind of hanging out on his own, doing his thing. I like though that Kratos were ready to re-engage as soon as that pick went down onto Sai, and we're ready to back away again as well, just as quickly. I think the communication there is so key, and it's helping them get back in these fights quicker and have more fights per unit time, let's say.
And now they have to locate away, so have to wait a little bit there. Ultima Weapon about to get the EMP. Dies before getting it, though. This is disastrous for the side of Kratos. And now you've got the advantage if you're the defending team. You don't have to worry about that EMP. You've got the Nano Boost onto Akash, who can get aggressive. Kind of just waiting around, though, just trying to focus on those supports who were kind of split up. But now you can try and cut them off before they can get back, and that's what they try to do. But they still get out for Kratos. But Infamous chipping away. 3 minutes left for Kratos.
Yeah, and I think them doing that sort of slow bleed style of fight where it's like, yeah, take your time, get set up. Oh, you lost your Sombra? That's a shame. Okay, well, just go ahead and try and get set up again. Oh, you lost your Tracer too? Oh no, you've lost 40 seconds. They love that. They're totally down for that. This recontest, though, they're moving fast. Kratos are not afraid.
They're able to regroup quickly because most of their players are able to get out. They go behind the Coalescence, but really don't get much value out of it yet. And 6 feet, the first one down in the fight again. Now you've got Infamous taking advantage of those players who've been split off. Fix will not be able to get away. Will go down to the sticky bombs of Sai, and now it's down to 225 for Kratos.
And 6 feet's been trying to build this sound barrier for so long, just now gets it. He's, like you said, been getting caught out early on a couple of these fights, and Lucio is so key to this composition. You got to go fast. You've got to be able to have those decisive engages. With no Lucio, you have no teeth. So for him to die early has been killing a lot of these fights, even if they're coming in thick and fast.
Coming in pretty quickly again, diving towards that back line. EMP gets used, only hits 2 players though. 6 feet will be able to use the sound barrier to effect to keep Kratos in the fight. Default trying to build up to that Death Blossom, now playing on that Reaper. Self-destruct thrown onto the point by Infamous to throw players away. Primal Rage gets popped by Borkin, who gets forced off of the point, now comes back in, has to jump away though because his players aren't there. Everybody's still alive for both of these teams though. This is a fight that's going to keep on going.
There it goes again, 6 feet. He's just getting caught. I don't even think he's positioned poorly. He was all the way in the back. It's just Infamous are putting so much focus on catching him out. That said, even though they lost him, the hacks coming through are actually opening things up for Cratos.
And Cratos now having multiple players on the point. They've gotten at least one tick. So now they can try continuing to build up. EMP comes out too, forcing those players back. Hits 4 with that. Gets a hack onto a 5th too. Primal Rage does nothing. Burn down so fast. Death Blossom ready for default. Waiting for the perfect opportunity. Gets slapped though when he was coming through with it, but he does get a lot of damage on. Gummy will go down as a result, and the Ana can do nothing but watches the point goes up. And 49 seconds on the clock for Cratos. When you consider that they were like at 5 minutes when they first took that point to be down to 49, that's some good work from Infamous.
Oh yeah, I mean, it was definitely, they took advantage of Kratos constantly trying to come back in. Every time there was a pick or some sort of opening, Kratos would try and throw a whole new fight together. But on 2CP, especially on the last point, you need clean engages. Your engages coming in, of course, the last one's a bit of an exception, and I'll get to that.
Right.
But when you come in and your Lucio is caught out early, you got to run. You better run. And they lost themselves at least a minute or two on like, okay, should we try and go in? I think we could clutch it out. We're pretty good. Let's give it a shot. Let's give it. Okay, nope. Someone got picked. Okay, back up again. Try it again. Let's try it again. And that cost them. But they kind of proved their philosophy to be worthwhile on that very last fight, because 6 feet went down early, again, got caught out. Just he was in the back, he was a little low, waiting for a health pack, I think, and good on Akash to be aware of that and jump straight on top of him. So he came in and just got that one pick, and they were like, okay, sweet, awesome. But Ultima Wep was ready. He got a good hack off. He came in with a good EMP, and even down the Lucio, that gave Kratos the space they needed on point to establish themselves. Default went for a bit of a greedy Death Blossom there at the end, getting slept, but it was zoning or ult more than anything. It kept D.Va and Ana back from the point, away from those sightlines, and gave them the time they needed.
So now they can try and beat that time for Infamous on their offense, and they're going, of course, with the same composition that got them to this point where they've burned down a lot of the time that was on the comp of Cratos. So Sai in the sky just trying to control things now, getting some good damage onto a few different players, and they're going to start wrapping around towards this left side for the side of Infamous. They'll see a packed mega health pack where they are, but they are in control of that room on the left side, and now it's going to be about this next dive coming in. Bar looking for the hack on the player jumping in, but Akash going down to default at the beginning. They lose their main tank. This is going to be really difficult for the side of Infamous now, stuck between a rock and a hard place.
At any given engagement, watch Akash's health bar. It goes down so fast, and a Brigitte and an Ana can only do so much, but they are putting so much focus onto Akash. It is insane how much damage they're putting out onto these front line.
Speaking of focus, a lot of focus onto the main tank on the other side, which is Borkin, or playing as any player 100 right now, though, in this game, but that is Borkin. We can assure you that. We know that for a fact. Akash, though, now, was getting ready to maybe dive in, gets hacked beforehand, so that just delays things further, and now allows for the nano boost to come on to Borkin, forcing those players back in. Default a little too aggressive, though, into that room, and goes down instead. So advantage goes back over to Infamous, who can now get aggressive themselves, have to deal with that Primal Raging Winston is the only problem, but now the EMP from Ultimate Weapon on top. But it's not enough. Kratos starting to actually get taken down once they get to the point.
Oh wow, and they used the sound barrier too. That's a rough commitment. I think they thought they had a couple more people than they did, or that they could save the tank line with that. Not quite enough. An expensive lost fight there for Kratos. This is a really good opportunity for Infamous coming online with 3 ultimates, especially the duplicate EMP combo could do a lot of work. So this is kind of scary for Kratos. They got to really batten down the hatches here. Hope they can get some good value out of an upcoming self-destruct from Krawi perhaps. But that said, they're at a pretty big disadvantage, both in terms of ults and the time now.
And there comes the EMP. It only catches Krawi, though. That is not the value that you're looking for on that EMP. Side still has the duplicate, though, that they can use in this fight if they want to continue committing forward. And here it comes. It's going to go on to the Winston for that. So they will build some quick Primal Rages. Has that Ana low on the other side. Avoids the sleep somehow to stay alive. Self-destruct thrown out. Not going to get anything. Out comes the Primal Rage. Gets hacked while in the middle of it, but that's okay because Side doesn't really need it. His team's in control to the point. Infamous building up. Already has a tick.
Gummy holding on to this self-destruct too. Good idea to try and throw it in maybe a little later in the fight and zone people away in key seconds. Default, though, has the Pulse Bomb, has Ultimate, gets his pick on to switch. A healing disadvantage now for Infamous.
And now they're starting to lose players for the side of Infamous. They're going to have to back away, but they do get 33% at the very least, Thibble.
Right, and they do pull the nano boost in the last seconds of that fight. They're on to Ultima Web. He's very close to an EMP, so it's not like it didn't get any value, but they'll have to try and hope that the DPS ultimates and the rally are going to be enough to handle the counter rally from Kitty King, as well as the EMP and the self-destruct from Infamous.
I'm just waiting right now, too, just letting them come forward for the side of Cratos, and now Infamous will look to engage in on, focus on that tank on the high ground. Ultimate Weapon will go down, though, had the EMP ready, too, and now they lose default to the DPS out of the fight. Far has the EMP ready to go as soon as those players start to come back in, and now uses it, gets both supports. 6 feet did at least get off the ultimate, but it's not enough. The hat coming out from Far is going to hit a lot of, or Ultimate Weapon's going to hit a lot of players, but it doesn't matter because there's so few players left alive right now for Cratos.
There's 2 Brigidas. Oh, what a nightmare. God, the Goats fan in me is just having a panic attack. They catch that last point, and losing both DPS right at the start of that fight is rough. Ultima Web being caught out with EMP just kind of sealed the deal. Kratos were going for a really forward hold just to try and get some poke, maybe try and catch out one of the squishier targets like the Ana or even the Echo as they tried to ingress. But Sai came in with cover from Gummy. So Krawi comes in and tries to protect Borkin, who's hanging out on that high ground, but he doesn't really have enough. So they're like, okay, maybe we start backing up. They're really pushing up high, and they're really pushing up hard. But then he doesn't have enough Matrix to protect Ultima Web as he's trying to disengage from that forward hold they had. He gets caught out early. Default gets caught out early. They're fighting on the back foot that entire fight with an ult disadvantage, might I add. So, bit of an overstep there from Kratos, who maybe would have wanted in another reality, if Doctor Strange had been around to tell them anyway, they may have wanted to hold a little farther back towards point, wait for everybody to come in to get a little more value off the EMP and the Pulse Bomb, perhaps. There's no Graviton to really bring them all together, but Default is more than capable of getting a good stick if you give them the space and give them the time. And ultimately, they got a little too greedy, got caught out, and now we're looking at extra rounds with a significant time difference.
2:58 for the side of Infamous, only a minute for the side of Kratos. Far building up to that EMP, already has a significant advantage too over Ultimate Weapons, so that'll be one of the ultimates that we're going to look for here. Oh, Sai just burst down Fix after you saw Fix use that fade, knew there was no chance to escape.
And the Echo combo there, the sticky mines into the focusing beam, I believe it's called, deals a stupid amount of damage, like Bastion amounts of damage. So to have a hero that can fly and also put up that much damage onto a squishy like that, a little unfair. But it's really just Sai getting the most out of the kit from Echo here. He is putting on a phenomenal performance.
Speaking of phenomenal, Fix comes back on the Ana and takes out Switch, so there's still a chance for Kratos in this fight without that main healer in. Crowley's able to get a Kosh down too, and now you can see Kitty King just backing away from the point. They're going to end up losing this for the side of Infamous.
And that was 100% Fix just showing up on that. Like you saw Sai kind of try and catch him on the backspawn, saw that he was on the Ana, maybe thought a little better of it. If he gets slept out, it's pretty much over for him. So he walks away, and that gives Fix the space he needs to just aim down sights and get him. And that opens it up.
Fix just made the switch and is at 80% on Ana. Literally just switched to it right after dying on the Moira, getting blown up on it, and is now making an impact. Speaking of impact, Ultimate Weapon's about to have the EMP. EMP comes through first from Far. Sound Barrier comes through, though. Now you have the hack trying to come on to Sai, who's playing on that Reaper now with the duplicate. Fix gets another kill on the Ana onto Far. The Death Blossom from Sai, though, evening things back up, and Kitty King will get the kill onto Default. So Kratos, they're not going to be able to get through onto this. Infamous, with some great ultimates at the end, will stop them from getting anything on the second point, and they have 2 minutes and 58 seconds for Infamous to tie this up by getting 33% on point number 2.
It is drawable though here for Kratos. Good
Yeah.
way to stay ahead in the series if they just hold them. I mean, they even could win if their hold's pretty good, but that's a bit of a
That's
tall ask given
yeah.
how these first points have been going so far. Infamous had the advantage there on that second point strictly because they built up a bit of an ult advantage in that longer first defense. So the duplicate, especially because again, Sai is putting on a clinic here. The duplicate onto the Reaper, providing that little bit of extra damage, especially against the tank line, which is super susceptible to a Reaper, two Reapers even. It was just a little too much for them to overcome. And despite the performance Fix was putting on with that Ana, when you've got an extra Reaper that builds a Death Blossom in like 2 shots, maybe a bit of a tall ask. You know, maybe just a little much to ask.
To that end, for the side of Infamous, like the Death Blossom being a huge difference, but not getting hacked by Sai, using the Wraith form to not get hacked by Ultimate Weapon allows for that Death Blossom to even happen.
Right, and that was actually more on Akash and Gummy, just applying pressure in that center lane heading towards the point, knowing that Ultimate Weapon didn't have his EMP quite ready to go, or he wasn't quite in the position he wanted to, and going for a manual hack. They knew, like, hey man, we got to stay on top of this guy because he's gonna really mess things up for us. So putting pressure onto the Sombra in those key mid-fight moments and not letting them get the hack. Oh no, this catch out. That's big.
Default's able to live, though, somehow. I don't know how that ends up happening, but Default didn't get a whole lot out of that except use a lot of his support's resources, but is able to back away and get with his team, so no harm, no foul, but you do give up a lot of ult percentage over to the side of Infamous is the only problem. So you now have the beam up in the air by Sai. Nothing just yet. They're just biding their time.
Watch for a manual hack here, and watch the support ultimates coming through. Fix is building his real fast, but Kitty King dies before he can build his rally. That might be just the fight lost for Infamous.
So Cratos, the first test for them to get a win on this map has been passed. They've taken 58 seconds off the clock.
That's pretty good. That is a good long fight, especially considering they almost immediately lost the point by default getting caught out in that little room. Wraith form, very balanced, very strong ability in the right situations. Sai, though, built the duplicate quick as you like. Kitty King now coming online. Switch as well. Not too far behind. So a good ult bank coming online here in the next 30 to 60 seconds for Infamous. And all they need to do is really build up that advantage, even if they get this first pick from far.
But they lose Far and Sai early on in the fight, so they've got to back away again for Infamous, and that ultimate bank that they were starting to build an advantage for, they've now lost.
Yeah, it's pretty even now, and with a minute left, it's definitely going to come down to the pressing of the Qs, as it were. These EMPs especially, because that denies that ult advantage that you built up. If you can't use them at all, then you're out of luck, bud.
But there's the first player to fall for the side of Kratos. EMP coming out from Ultimate Weapon evens things back up. Default gets a kill with the Death Blossom. Now Sai using the Death Blossom. Not even though by the D.Va's the only problem. Didn't have enough defense matrix left by Crowley. Did manage to get the kill onto Akash. This is a bloody fight, but it's going the way of Infamous. So Infamous, with the closer respawns too, will be able to force Kratos back, but they're starting to re-engage back in because they've got the primal range to get the kill onto Kitty King, and now they've got players coming back on.
Yep, Borkin going around and Borkin people, but he gets too far forward and gets caught out by Far. Far actually got canceled. His EMP, I believe, got canceled by Ultimate Weapon that first fight, but Sai using the duplicate just out of range actually protected him and gave him the strength to get those Death Blossoms off in the middle of that fight. That said, the re-engage coming out for Kratos with the support ultimates as well has been super crucial. There's a very real chance that they hold this.
They've got one player down already in Sai, so it's going to be a 6-on-5 when this fight starts. Oh, but the hack by Far, keeping Fix away on the Moira. Gets the kill onto the Moira too, so there's still a chance for Infamous. EMP coming out, only hits 2 players, but that might be enough.
Here
Out
comes
comes the EMP from Ultimate Weapon, like you were calling, and they've got those players hiding in the point, but Infamous with the nano boost onto Akash will be able to get this one done, but they won't have much time if they want to win this map.
Right, this map can only be a draw now. Infamous are going to have 30 seconds. That's one push, and they had to use a lot. That said, Sai, 75% for him is pretty freaking close to an Echo Ultimate. He has been building them so fast. Vorkin swapping to the Reinhardt now. They want more point presence. They say, you're going to have to come to us. We are not going to overextend. We know what's at stake here. We have to draw this map, and you're going to have to figure out what to do if you want to get us.
Tosh trying to just play and make sure that they don't let Default or Ultima Web get in behind them very easily. They've got 10 seconds now to get to the point. Being aggressive, though, is Cratos, not letting them get there. The Primal Rage will get that touch. Has Fix using that fade to get him away. Sound Barrier hits everybody on the side of Cratos by 6 feet. Default has that Death Blossom available. Fades away to make sure that they can stay up. Infamous gets to the point now.
Oh, no.
Oh, Default! Press Q on accident away from the point, and then a player goes down. Sai trying to build up to that EMP on the duplicate, not able to get up to it, but Infamous is doing everything they need to get this win on this point, and now even things up 1-1.
Oh, that's a heartbreaker. He had to shadow step on the point past the Winston bubble and then press Q. But I think just in the hype of the moment, he just went, I got a Death Blossom, Q. Oh no. Oh God. That was heartbreaking. If I'm him, I am mad, but at myself, because that's tough. I don't know if he got displaced somehow or just got flustered. But that is a pretty key loss. I don't know if he would have done much with it. Even so, I believe Gummy still had a decent amount of Matrix left there. But either way, you're kicking yourself just a little bit because that was very close. It was a good engage from Cratos. I brought up how they were going to stand on point and just say, you're going to have to come to us. We're not going to overextend. But they kind of made me eat my words because they walked up and said, we're not necessarily going to overextend, but we are going to extend, and we're in a brawl comp, so you better figure out how to take us down before we stop you from getting to point in the first place. Luckily enough for Infamous, they did do that, and now we are at a tied series.
They handled the pressure well that was put on from Cratos by engaging early on in that fight, that's for sure. And now we end up at this even state of 1-1. But before we can find out how it's going to advance from here, we're going to take a quick timeout, and when we come back, we'll see how this game will advance on.
shatter. Let the bodies hit the floor. Uprising Academy at 95%.
Right now with Hydra building up to this Bear Barrage so quickly.
Oh, and asking.
Double kill in the back with the pulse bomb from the high ground. Aerial assault with that line.
Impact se escucha debajo gritar campeón a Sky Foxes.
Holy cow.
And at the 42 consecutive losses, the Shanghai Dragons get their first win.
8 teams enter this weekend.
Oh no, Reinhardt, what are you doing?
We got a clip with minimal information. It's time to break it down. Speed, 25%. Go. Figure out what this man's SR is.
Keep fighting till it's for sure lost. Winnable!
All tied up 1-1 after our first 2 games. Labosco here alongside Thibbledork. It's a battle for this final contender spot between Cratos and Infamous. And Thibble, I mean, we've had a wild one up until this point. Infamous just winning that last map of Temple of Anubis, and it was not easy for them to get that win.
No, I don't think either team is ever going to make it easy for the other with this much at stake and with them so closely matched. As we said right at the beginning, we're in for a banger. Hashtag live evil, because this is it's about as close as it gets. I mean, it was really one fight away from being a draw. Like it was one little mistake here or there, one big outplay here or there that really decided that. It really takes me back. I'm definitely stroking some egos here, but this series reminds me of like the old like Shock Titan stage finals, where both teams were just punching each other in the jaw all the way through until the very end, and every fight came down to a hair. Like, these are close. These are really close, and it's making for some very entertaining Overwatch so far.
And the entertaining Overwatch isn't going to end here today. Sure, Contenders Trials will be over, but the Trials of Champions is right around the corner. It is the first third-party event to be officially included in the Overwatch Path to Pro system. It has a $3,000 prize pool that the top 3 teams, sponsored by Blizzard, and the 2 final opportunities are going to be seeded into any trials starting in late October. So huge opportunities there. Signups are open. Any tier 3 team can be part of it. It starts October 14th. Go to elohell.gg/TOC for more info if you want to be in the Trial of Champions as well. So, I mean, we've got that around the corner. We've got this going on right now, Thibbledork, and we get to go to Eichenwald as our next map.
Oh, yeah, and this is going to be a good one for sure. If I'm Kratos, I'm maybe a little nervous, actually. Sai on this Echo has been a revelation and has really at least from what I've seen. I admit I haven't watched every game this week, but from what I've seen, he is one of the only people really putting on a clinic with Echo here and showing what the hero can do in this meta, and has just been phenomenal. Really cannot go. I cannot say too much how well he is doing.
Yeah.
I'm just going to keep blabbering about how good this guy is for the rest of the series. That said, this team is meeting its match, both of them. These are both, like we said, teams worthy, I feel, of going to contenders. If there were 3 slots available, I would say send them both, but there are only 2. So we are here on Eichenwald, a map that has loads of room to fly around and frolic, really let your weird fin, wing, surfboard thing stretch. Whatever the heck those things are that she's got. I don't know, man.
I think they're wings. I think you call them
I mean, sure, technically you call them wings, but they are not structured like any wing, and they have some sort of hovery technology because this is set in the 2070s, where Hasselhoff is a classic, apparently. So who knows, really? They've probably developed some interesting new name to describe the technology, but I have a degree in history, so I'm just going to stick to talking about Overwatch because not like those two are related, but definitely more.
I was going to say, I was like, that's a weird way to connect things, but sure, why not? Yeah. It works.
That's how I roll. That is how I roll. Echo coming through here to start. Interesting rotation though from Cratos.
And going through that room on the left side if you're looking at the point, and now they will make their dive on, trying to get onto those backline targets, but there's the Brigitte to hit them away, push them below. But now Cratos is right below where those supports are, and Vorkin is going to be the first one down, though, to the sticky bombs of Psy. So Cratos actually not doing too well here, even though they were able to get some good positioning underneath. And there's the boop. Default tried to get back on. Good timing to use that to get back, but Kitty King was waiting, ready in case that he got back on, and they're forced back here. I don't even know if they touched the point.
They, I think, maybe did for a second, literally a second. I think we don't see it in the composition, but in the playstyle, I feel like Infamous are adapting very well, at least on this point, to say, hey, we're going to hold high ground control with our supports who have tons of CC to help each other out. Your dive is not going to be as effective unless you get a little hack like that. And we're a bit of a thorny bush that you're going to have to try and get to if you want the blueberries or whatever this metaphor is going for.
Well, they've gotten one of them. They've got to get 3, though. 3 points to take that open. But Bars there, EMP hits both supports for Cratos, and they're forced back once again, trying to get away. And they're chasing them down for the side of Infamous, trying to build up some more ultimates.
And just see how quickly Infamous are ready to jump on someone when the hack comes out or the EMP comes out. As soon as they spot the advantage, the decisiveness of these two teams has always been the key factor in this series and in any of their series this week. The deciding difference has been how quickly they're ready to flip that switch. And Infamous right now are in the zone in terms of their engagements.
And Cratos is anticipating the EMP, when to use it, throws it out now, gets both tanks. Psy will be able to use the duplicate to get onto a Reaper. Gets healed back up, about to get that Death Blossom with a couple more shots, trying to be able to at least get an ultimate off with it. Has to be a little bit careful, just waiting, and just will use it around the corner, just trying to get some value out of it, but it still kept them back is the good thing, and now the dive coming right back in for Cratos behind the coalescence of Fix. They get onto those players on the back. Hat coming out onto Gummy, but is able to get up on top before it comes through. They give up the point with the players alive!
All right, well, I have a handy folder full of animated cards that I use for the Florida Mayhem, and a couple of them, in fact, have C9 written on them in big old pink letters, and I think I will use one of those in a few minutes on my Twitter account, because by golly, that was a organic, grass-fed, pasture-raised Charlie Niner, and that's rough. I mean, good hacks coming through, I think, from Ultima Web to deny kind of more mobility from Gummy. It wasn't just a complete, faux pas. But they maybe should have thought about dropping down a little quicker, perhaps. But that's all water under the bridge at this point. Now we're setting up on this high ground on street space, trying to keep Psy, I think, from getting too much space to work with to start.
Right, they still might have lost that fight, even though they did have that Charlie Niner, as you called it, but they didn't even give themselves a chance. But they used the EMP early on, but it doesn't find 6 feet, so everybody able to be kept alive through the EMP of Far. And now Psy is going to go down, and Infamous is scrambling.
Yep. Good peel, I think. Sai coming in has been so strong when he gets just enough time to get his combo off on a squishy and then get away. But Kratos obviously are not dumb, and they are very aware of what he is doing, so they all just hung out together and waited for him to come on down with his little wing fin surfboard things, and then said, no, that's as far as you're going to go there, bud. Thank you very much. Have a nice day. Don't let the door hit you on the way out. And now they're moving forward pretty steadily with a sizable ult bank. Oh, but the stun!
The stun while using the EMP. Default gets the Death Blossom off, but gets pushed off of the map. I think he actually was able to get back on, though, it looked like. He was able to shadow step back on. So he keeps himself in the fight, but his team is still in a bad situation on this. He tries to get away, is able to do it again with the shadow step, and now the Primal Rage that's been used by Sai, keeping players at bay for the moment. They avoid the self-destruct. Ultimate Weapon gets spotted out by the Brigitte, will translocate away, and now Akash back in, able to kill Default, Kitty King down, but Infamous is the one winning this fight.
Oh yeah, big EMP to close that one out. I was very close all the way through. Sai with a really nice duplicate as well, because of course I'm contractually obligated at this point to talk about how well he's doing. Swapping onto the Winston instead of a Reaper, which has kind of been his go-to these past couple maps, giving them that extra sustain and the displacement as well, especially on this bridge, which is famous for its environmental kills. Akash starting out with a good one with his Primal as well, but did not get default, which kept Kratos, I should say, in that fight a little bit longer. Now though, only a minute left.
Going to throw out that Coalescence right at the beginning, too. Jumping in is going to be Borkin, throwing players off the side, but able to get away, no problem. Not that time, though. Looks like he maybe got one. Well, no, I guess he didn't get one. It looked like he did. Doesn't matter, though. Infamous is controlling this fight, so Borkin trying to knock players off, just not being successful.
Right, he knocked Far off the first time he has a translocator. He knocked him off again, tried to go and catch the translocator before he could use it again, but didn't quite get it. So Far actually surviving both times there, lucky for him. Now they've got a sizable ult advantage of their own. Sure, the sound barrier coming through for Kratos, but that's it. Coming up against what looks to be almost 5 ultimates with only 30 seconds left. This is pretty dire for Kratos right now.
Maybe their last fight, too, just because of how far they're going to have to go. Ultimate Weapon spotting out Far's translocator. That's actually pretty massive because Far's about to get that ult. Sound Barrier going to come out here first, though. Far still doesn't have the EMP, so now they're going to have that available, and Far gets the kill onto Ultimate Weapon, who didn't get their EMP off. Far now translocating in, throws the EMP out. Time's about to be up. Player who fell off was Borkin, and now it's just 6 feet by the cart, quickly taken down. And this will be the end of the push for the side of Kratos. A good defensive hold here on the Streets phase for the side of Infamous.
Right, and starting off with the hack onto Brigitte, there is a brief glimmer of some sort of hope for Kratos. They come in on the engage with that, but they know immediately, Infamous does, I should say, hey, okay, the Brigitte is hacked. We have to approach this fight maybe a little differently. And just have a good defensive posture, understanding the resources at their disposal, given the stimuli from the other team. So a great, I suppose, in-flight adaptation throughout the course of that fight. And that EMP coming out right at the end, Borkin actually backed up off the bridge, hoping to avoid it, like use the bridge as cover as he was floating in the not quite death zone, and then jump right back up as soon as it was done. But just the spacing on it meant that he got hit with it and then backed up with that plan still in mind, but had no jump and just fell to his death. A little unfortunate, but an outplay really for Far with a great EMP there at the end to really just seal the deal.
Really was, and it's such a good win condition for them too. I mean, it's tough to get to the end of that bridge, but being able to stop a team there is such a momentum builder for the team on defense. You set yourself a great pace, and I mean, the big thing here, Thibble, is it seems like Kratos now is having trouble with the adaptations that have been made by Infamous with just how they're using their comp.
Right. Yeah. The adaptations, like I brought up at the beginning of the map as they were defending on first point, Infamous's adaptations have not been in terms of swapping up the heroes. It's been swapping up how they play, focusing on their defense, making sure that you're not going to come in with more than half your health on us. You're not going to be able to burst down our supports. We're peeling for each other. We're supplying CC. We're spy checking. We're hacking. We're winning the Sombra 1v1 like that right there. I mean, those were things that were not happening in that first map, and to a degree even in the second. But in the third, Infamous are learning. They are getting the download, and it is showing up in a big way.
And now they have Psy in the sky. Once again, there's really just not much that can deal with him, too. When you look at the composition that Cratos runs, he's able to kind of freely fly where he wants, and they aren't able to deal with him all that well. So now the dive starts to come in from Akash, and there in the sky again is Psy getting the kill onto Fix, so they're without their Moira at the beginning. Ultimate Web building up to that EMP, but Far is closer.
Yep, it's not going to be enough, and it's not going to be nearly quick enough here as Infamous are methodically, carefully making their way to point. Akash getting hacked here early, but still getting a tick as we look to re-engage for Cratos.
Out comes that re-engage. Crowley gets hacked is the only problem. And there's the burst damage on to NA player. And now it's Crowley out of mech, so they collapse on, and the methodical approach, the right approach for the side of Infamous.
Definitely. We see a swap onto the Tracer. I was almost going to make a comment. I normally feel a little weird about critiquing Contenders, Trials, and above players because I've been in Plat for 15 seasons. But I wasn't really sure that the Reaper Sombra was the answer. You see this Echo doing so much work for these past 3 maps. No hit scan swap or anything. Tracer technically counts, especially because Psy likes to get in real close, definitely in Tracer range. But I almost wonder if they might be better off swapping to a Sniper, perhaps, or even a Soldier 76. But again, I'm in Plat. I don't really want to act too confidently here. These guys know better than me. They're the professionals. I just talk.
They do have an easier time dealing with the Ana is one thing that the Tracer does allow. And Borkin getting onto Akash early on spells very good for them, at least in this first fight. They stop this cart pretty early on after those doors.
A good thing here, too, for the Tracer, even though you might not think it as he gets to stagger onto Far, that's a nice one, is that you might not think it in terms of looking at a Tracer versus a Reaper, but a Tracer can get more damage onto a tank and more safely, too. So this swap actually might be better for a tank busting perspective in addition to the slight countering it might offer you against an Echo. A little more accurate, a little more focused in her fire. So, interesting swap. I'm liking it so far from Cratos.
Well, didn't work out that well against the Sombra in Far that time, who's close to another EMP. Been keeping ahead as far as the pace for it ahead of Ultimate Wep, and now Psy is going to use the duplicate, pushing Fix away, and now forcing the translocation away and that cart to move through and get close to the end of this map, what will be the end of this map, where that golden box of victory is.
So Psy actually not getting that much value out of that duplicate, though. Definitely a bit more of a zoning ult. I think they expected Cratos to commit a little more than they did. Kratos happy to back away, go for one last fight. They know they can't afford to lose right there. They need to stand their ground here. That said, Borkin already down.
Hardest place to win the fight if you are the attacking team is on that bridge because of how susceptible you are to going off. But if you keep killing players, it doesn't matter. Crowley without the mech, and now jumping in is Akash. They do lose Kitty King, but it's a sacrifice they're willing to make to win the map. The self-destruct keeping those players away, coming right back in, using that wrecking ball is Borkin just hoping to knock players off. And now the sleep onto Gummy, but protected by the bubble shield. And they will be able to finish this map. They just have to kill these last few straggling players coming back. Don't let anyone go down, and this map is yours if you're Infamous Psy. Getting close to another duplicate, beams a player down. And there it is, Infamous just trying to get these last few players left. The spawn is so close at time. NA player, just take them down. And there it is, finally. The nano boost helps make that happen. Infamous will win this map and take a 2-1 lead.
Suddenly we're looking at a match point after that first map. I was a little confident in Kratos. They seemed the more
Contenders
point. Right. Yeah. Contenders point. As big as the stakes get for these guys right now. Kratos looked great on map 1, but since then they've really struggled to adapt. I think the Tracer is a good attempt. They're trying to maintain the same philosophy of their composition when the Reaper was online, but still providing a little extra pressure onto the Echo. I just don't think it's enough. We don't know what map they're about to go to right now, but I hope it's something that favors the style of composition they want to run if they hope to bring this to a map 5. Because right now, with the maps and the styles that Infamous are bringing to bear, it's looking pretty rough. We're going to Junkertown now. Interesting. What do you think about this?
Well, A lot of hit scan gets used there. It's double sniper's pretty popular there, at least for first point. So makes it a little bit hard. I mean, they're a little bit harder on Psy in the Sky, I guess. That's what I think about when I think about Junkertown.
Yep, Widow on that first point, those long sight lines, even some Ash hanging out on the high ground there, over the sign or in the streets phase. There are options. There is hope. Default and Ultima Wet, both capable hit scan players, both of them very flexible, frankly, in their hero pools. It's been one of Kratos' greatest strengths. But Psy just coming through on this Echo has seemed unstoppable. And he is so fast. He's so good with Echo's kit in terms of mobility and burst damage. He's got that damage combo down with the stickies and the focusing beam.
Yeah.
It's gonna, even with the snipers and the sightlines allowed, Psy is not gonna make this easy for them. They're gonna have to really be clicking some heads well before he can get close to them, because it gets pretty tough to shoot an Echo when she's right in your face and doing the "which way am I going" type thing. It's tough. It's tough, and I don't just say that because I'm in plat. It really is difficult.
They've been doing it without a mercy too, to pocket Psy. I think it's one of the more not it's definitely impressive, but also just different things we've seen, because the majority of time when we've seen Echoes get played, whether the meta called for it or whatever it might be, or when a team decides to, there's usually a mercy attached to the Echo. And that hasn't been the case for Infamous. And they are going to be attacking here first too on Junkertown.
It's actually a very good point. I almost really hadn't thought of that. It just, there were no Psy just hasn't had any problems on the Echo. There's been no point where I've been like, man, if he really just had that pocket, he'd be fine, because he's still been doing the work. And really, you know what it might be is that Kitty King on the Brigitte, the healing, you don't need to aim that like an Ana or
you
just throw the packs
up. Yeah. Well,
so
you do have switch on the Ana too, so you've got the hit scan healing available to shoot Psy in the sky.
Right. If you can hit the shots, you're getting a little extra burst in those key moments where he's flying right in the face of somebody or getting in with the rest of the team. You know, and onto an Echo like that is not unheard of, especially at this level. But I think the extra just oomph provided by just the health packs flying perfectly through the air, heat-seeking missiles of love, just being applied onto the Echo whenever you like. That's definitely some extra padding that has definitely served Psy well, because he is getting some work done. Man, I'm very curious though. I want to see Kratos. They have to do something. This is match point, contenders point. You can't just try and run the same thing that you've lost the last two maps on now. Something has to change, be it playstyle or composition. So it's Junkertown. Make something happen. Go crazy. Bring out the Widow Hanzo or something. Start focusing, maybe focus the front line. If the Echo's giving you too much trouble, take care of everyone else first and clean her up when they're all gone. That's been one of the strategies available since Pharah Mercy was meta. Yeah, and all the time she's been meta back in the day. Either you bring out hit scan to deal with whoever's in the sky, or you bring out something that can rush the other members of the team that are missing someone who's on their way to Mars, and then just clean up the stragglers after. So Kratos is going to need to bring one or the other here, because this Echo is just getting away with murder.
And I do think Junkertown is a map where it does get harder for Psy to do what we've seen Psy been doing this entire time, because you're more susceptible to play those hit scan heroes on the side of Kratos on a map like this. So this may be where Infamous can stall, but it does favor them in maps that we might see later on, is the only thing. Kratos was the team we were waiting for. They are ready now, so we're going to jump into this map of Junkertown 2 and see what it is they decide to do here defensively, if they give us some of that hit scan, or if they do like you were saying there, Thibble, focus everybody else but Psy. Get everybody else down on the ground, and then you can take care of that Echo who's all alone by herself, waiting or at the end.
Yeah, just kind of hanging out, and suddenly she's left all alone, floating in the sky with her little flippers. I'm just going to come up with interesting names for her wings because it sounds fun. I think another thing actually that could come out, if Infamous want to stay a step ahead, if they're kind of like, I know that you know that I know type situation, we see something like this. It's the Widow Bastion. Maybe not this specifically, but Psy and Far, in addition to running, Sombra Ash or even a Sombra Reaper, I believe, earlier in the week. They've also been running like Tracer Ash compositions on maps like Volskaya, where that kind of suits the geometry of the points to run a hit scan and a more mobile flanking DPS. So having Psy swap onto the Widow on the defense, this obviously is attack. None of these on the right side actually matter because they're going to swap at the last second and make me look silly. But on the defense, Psy swapping off the Echo onto a hit scan could be like one step ahead. That said, we're getting into a crazy upfront brawl here as Cratos hold the line.
Playing really close out front. Spotted out, though, very easily by Infamous, so now they can decide how they want to attack this, and they're going to get a lot of cleave damage in at the beginning from Akash. Quickly charges up a quarter of his ultimate bar. Default now getting onto that card as they start to back away. Psy, seeing those players all in that little room, that's something that you're okay with if you're Echo. Throw those sticky bombs in and just watch the damage pour through, as they seem to be very methodical with how they want to go about this for the side of Infamous. Psy getting a little bit low, gets healed back up though. They are handling so far what Cratos is throwing at them. Default playing on that Reaper, getting extremely low, fading away, trying to stay up and get themselves a Coalescence to come out of that room with, but the hack comes out, stopping Fix from getting that for too long. They lose Kitty King though on the side of Infamous, so his stall's starting to work out. I mean, it's working. Only gotten one kill, but it's still enough where the card's not moving.
Good cover from Borkin here, protecting Fix when he got hacked a little earlier on in that fight. Of course, he's down now, Psy got in. And that kind of hits my second point. Yeah, the stall is great, and you can sustain, and you can hide in that room and take advantage of the cover that it allows you. But the composition from Infamous is way too mobile. The Echo can be anywhere, at any time. The Sombra can be behind you whenever she wants. So yeah, you might be holding the line over here with the shield, and holding another door with a defense matrix perhaps, but that still leaves one open.
And now you get the EMP to come out. Far goes down while using it, though, is the only problem. Now the counter EMP from Ultima Wep will hit a lot of players. Psy did get that duplicate onto the Sombra, gets an EMP, EMPs them again, gets a hack too at the end onto the D.Va, so you have a bunch of hack players in that little tiny room. Default with that Death Blossom, waiting for the opportunity, self-destruct, keeping these players inside of the room. And now finally we'll start to advance out. I don't know if Default got stuck there, but finally just decides to come back.
No, he did that before too. He's using it to kind of body block and obscure what's going on in the other room as they're just recovering their health. It's a pretty decent move.
Is it going to pay off, though, is the only thing. They're keeping this cart stalled at the very least. We're down to a minute and a half left. They've really only had 2 fights between these two teams. Default able to come out with that Death Blossom available still, holding on to it, doesn't need to use it. Psy will get in a player and then get fixed, but it's an even trade, which is going to favor the attacking team. They've got the closer spawns.
And given the position here, the spawn advantage is getting closer and closer to even as the cart progresses. Of course, Psy just cleaning up so hard. The hacked health pack in this room to the left of what we're looking at right now the right because he turned around, was a big advantage just in terms of healing. It's 250 health like every 4 seconds. That's pretty big.
Big to get onto Default there too, who's extremely low health. Same with 6 feet. Bursted down by the Primal Rage and the Beam. EMP on top from Ultima Wep to try and even things back up. But Infamous is just winning this fight outright. It doesn't even matter about that EMP.
And expensive on both sides too. Both teams thinking they had a shot, committing ultimates. Infamous already, obviously, coming out on top, I should say. But investing the Primal, the Duplicate, and the Nano, and the EMP, excuse me. This is a soft reset of sorts. That said, Infamous still have a bit of an advantage. The self-destruct and the rally, excuse me, is going to give them a little beefiness and a little zoning capability, especially considering it looks like Cratos are coming in on a little cheeky off angle.
Drop in immediately on to the cart, stall it out once again. Default has had this Death Blossom, I feel like, for half the game so far, more than that actually.
There are just so many things that can cancel it.
Yeah, has not had an opportunity to use it. That's a good thing coming from the side of Infamous to not allow him to have that opportunity, but it also means that it's very difficult for Cratos to do what they need if they can't get at least a decent Death Blossom off, and that'll keep the cart moving for the side of Infamous, who seem to get stronger as this map is going on.
Right, building up another EMP, close again to a Primal. Psy and Switch have both been building their ultimates quick too, so you might as well call this 6. Ultima Wep is 40% behind. Crowley is coming up on a self-destruct, but those don't tend to get a ton of value. The support ultimates are what might keep Kratos in this fight. They need to get a good sound barrier to cancel this EMP from far. Otherwise, we're in a bad shape.
Now Far trying to fight a Sombra who's on a half health pack. Not going to go well, so decides to come instead. Use the EMP. Doesn't get 6 feet with it again. And now they will throw the Nano Boost onto Akash, who looks to try and get aggressive. Ultimate Wep trying to get the hack on, but gets spotted out. Won't let that happen. Not able to get anything with the ultimate with Psy, but Ultimate Wep finally going down in that fight to Far. And Akash, Primal Raging, displacing players, throwing Default in, who gets hacked and then gets the kill onto 6 feet afterwards. Much faster, much better push through the streets phase.
Right, so 6 feet did get a pretty good sound barrier at the end of the day. Not on everybody, but on enough people to at least not end the fight immediately. But the sustained fight still favored Infamous. They still had the ult advantage, the resource advantage. Ultima Wep was still trying to catch up to the EMP. He's just now built it up. A little late there, bud. That said, this is setting up a pretty decent hold potentially for Kratos in the streets phase. They have finally built an ultimate advantage, if only just. They have a brief moment here before Far builds up the EMP, unless he finishes it like right now before I finish the sentence. Default just used his Death Blossom though? Question mark?
I
could have sworn he had it. I don't know.
Either way, doesn't matter. Ultima Wep's going to use the EMP, and it's going to be a fight-winning EMP for the side of Kratos, so they're able to stall the card out.
Yep. Nice, clean one there. Pretty cheap overall. I'm still a little confused about the Death Blossom. I could have sworn he had it, but I could also be wrong. Now, though, they have the Shatter. Nice stagger there. They have the Shatter and the Coalescence with the sound barrier not far behind. If Infamous can engage before 6 feet builds that, they're on the gravy train. If they can't, they might struggle here. There's only a minute left, so it's going to be awful quick.
Well, they got a hack onto NA player, aka Borkin, to really kind of force them back a little bit. And there's a hack or EMP that gets only the tanks, but that might be enough. Another hack coming on to NA player who's forced away, and that cart now can start to move around.
Yeah, not as much value off of the EMP as they might have liked. And now 6 feet has the sound barrier, so they could engage aggressively. Here they go.
Well, now they're going to have to deal with the charging coming through from Psy. Gets it onto any player. They did lose Far in the fight, who is the victim of a charge of their own. But really not a whole lot for Psy to use that ultimate on, as they were staying away for Kratos.
Akash hacked, but a good nade there, keeping him alive for just a moment more. Big EMP coming through here from Ultima Wep. Catches 4. Looks like Kratos will be able to clean up here with 20 seconds counting down.
Get those kills on the last few players, and now you've got players just trying to get away for Kratos. There's 15 seconds left for Infamous to try and get back to this cart. They've got to regroup.
Kratos have to be careful here. They really want to push up. They really want to deny space and just end it before it even hits overtime, but they don't want to overextend. Now the Primal coming in, they'll, Infamous will touch and extend this just a little bit longer into overtime, so they have to be careful. If they overextend and get caught out, Infamous will be able to push this all the way to the end. There goes.
Speaking of getting caught out, there's Ultima Wep going down to Psy, so you've got the advantage for Infamous. Far's about to get to the EMP too, has it now, can throw that translocator in just a second, but holding on, making sure that they stay together, that they're ready for this as a group. And now Far will start to come in, throws that EMP out with the self-destruct, forcing players back. Switch goes down to the self-destruct from Gummy, though, is the only thing. Probably able to get back in mech now, but one of the few players left that can do anything for Kratos. There's just too much on the side of Infamous, and they complete the map in no time on the clock.
I mean, at least they finish. It's an overtime finish, but a finish nonetheless. There is a win condition for them. They just have to put up a better defense, and they are in contenders. It is that easy. That said, Kratos, not just rolling over quite yet. They are not giving up by any means. There is still a chance for map 5 if we start getting into extra rounds. Things get real sloppy. But still, I feel they need a little more. They need something different. They need... we were talking about the hit scan, the Widow here on this first point. something to throw Infamous off their game plan, because their game plan right now is working flawlessly. They're getting the space they need. They're maintaining great ult economies all the way through as we get into a pause here. And it just doesn't look like anything that Cratos have been trying is quite working.
Mm-hmm. One of the players having a little bit of audio issues. Should be a pretty quick pause, though, here for us. So we should be jumping back in pretty quickly. But while we get that extra breath to come back in, let's talk about what Kratos is starting to do correctly and what they need to do here in order to actually get themselves ahead.
Right. So not everything, that wasn't a total failure. It was a finish in overtime. So a good
Right.
defense from Kratos, right? It's not the end of the world. They were not wet paper in a snowstorm or whatever wacky Midwestern metaphors we want to come up with. I'm sure you'd be the expert on that anyways. So it's Kratos are still doing well in terms of knowing their strengths. Borkin still swapping between the Winston and the Reinhardt pretty fluidly, depending on the style they want to be running and how aggressive they want to be. Ultima Wep still focusing on that Sombra 1v1, trying to catch far off balance somehow whenever he can. It's kind of cost him a couple times, but it is still a little wrinkle that Infamous have had to be aware of all the way through the map.
Yeah, it definitely is. Far has we highlighted the matchup between these two. Ultimate Weps felt like it was the advantage to him, at least in the beginning, but Far has been so consistent at building these EMPs and building them quickly. Has been outpacing Far has been outpacing Ultimate Wep here quite a bit. And you know, there's obviously the doors aren't open yet, but this is entirely possible that we see Double Sniper come out from Kratos.
Yeah, this looks plausible. This is not a Bastion Widow or anything silly like that.
Right.
Double Sniper has been a very common composition on Junkertown. Would certainly keep Psy honest. I think he would probably not just be coasting through the sunny skies of Junkertown with two snipers constantly hunting him down. Let's see if they actually move forward with this. It looks like they will.
The players start to come out. Nothing coming through just yet, but they are going to go with the Widowmaker, but they will have the Tracer instead for Ultima Wep.
I like that. I think it's a good way to help peel for Sombra. You saw that Far was already putting some pressure on the default. I think he's gonna need some help like that. He needs his peel for sure for this composition to be effective, and I think Ultima Wep helps with that on the Tracer.
They have the pocket too with the Mercy that's going to be attached to the hip of Default, who's going to try to get Sky sniped out of the sky, but it's going to be Ultima Wep who falls down first. Handling that extra pressure that the Widowmaker brings has been something that Infamous has done at least well here early on, but the Rez will keep this at a 6v6.
Yep, keeps the fight going here. It's a bit stalled at the moment. I think both teams are trying to figure out just how to position, where to get in on the flanks like that, bringing Akash down to about half. Far, though, coming up on this EMP, that one, I think, is a pretty definitive fight ender. If he gets a good EMP and his whole team just collapses on Kratos, it's not looking good. Pressure here onto Default.
And Default getting extremely low, has the pocket to heal him back up, but Far is about to get to that EMP. Nice hack onto the Wrecking Ball, but Psy goes down. Kitty King the next one to follow. EMP comes out, though, from Far, evening things back up. Gummy being the hero, getting 3 kills, but Ultima Wep quickly bursting down Switch, so you lose out on all that healing from the Ana, but this is still anyone's map to finish this point. You have Akash who can come back in. Pulse Bomb try to stick from Ultima Wep, misses, and now you've got to regroup if you are the side of Kratos.
Quick re-engage from them coming through, especially with the Rez. They love to re-engage quickly whenever possible. The sight's coming through to help counter the Sombra a bit, keep her honest. But that's not going to stop her, and once she gets healed up a little bit, of course, as this Primal comes out from Akash.
Default not able to really get away either with that grapple hook. Oh, just missing the shot that would have killed Psy. Coming back in is Kitty King using that ultimate. Akash jumping out but goes down to fix. So they've got an advantage here for Kratos. Crowley with the self-destruct. Psy can't get away in the air. And now this is looking like the fight for Kratos to lose if they want to keep this going on. Fix gets hit by the self-destruct, though. That's a pretty big loss, but there's only 2 players left alive. This should still be Kratos' point.
I feel like that is a nice fade away from Ultima Wep, I just got to say. I feel like Gummy was so important on that defense. He lived like 6 lives there. He would get pulled out of his mech, but then self-destruct, and then maybe kill one, and then come back and live again, and then he built another over the course of that fight. That was big from him. That said, it's still a pretty solid push coming out from Kratos. I'm liking this composition they're running. I don't know how viable it'll be in streets. Never mind. Don't listen to me. I'm in plat, for God's sake. Why do I even talk? These guys are going to hit the shots they need, and Kratos are going to continue pushing halfway through the street space.
Well, Infamous never got their opportunity to have an early hold because of just how the map worked out. So they weren't able to get that advantageous spot where you could hold this sort of composition. Now Sai is on the Tracer trying to build up to that pulse bomb. Not going to be able to get it is the only problem. As I say that, that's exactly what happens. Builds up to the bomb, misses with it though, gets eaten up. So it's not even going to get a chance to get onto anyone. Fear, far, extremely low. Fearing for his life, will use the translocate, but his team is winning the fight while we were watching that.
And the stagger coming out from Crowley. This is rough.
Ooh,
that's going to cost. I mean, they could have even left him. He was hacked. They got a little greedy there. That could have been an extra 10 seconds. A duplicate from Sai. I don't really know. Of course, he's 45% back again already. He's just doing so much poke damage on his tanks. And then chunking down the squishies with equal measure. But Kratos coming online here with an ult advantage, for sure. I got 4 ultimates coming online. 6 feet, of course, is down. I cursed them. Why do I speak? The trans coming through too. Oh no! And the eat from Ultimate Weapon. No!
So many things going wrong for Kratos, but everything going right for Infamous. They do lose far in this fight, but they have the nano-boosted Akash that's focusing on that Wrecking Ball on the high ground, forcing him away, jumping out as he gets hacked too, so he will be able to survive, even with a pretty good hack coming through. And then there's the beam to burst down default. They do lose Gummy is the only problem. Sai has that ultimate that can be used here to get them another DPS or something back in, but wants to keep using that beam, beaming down another player. Is Sai on this Echo. So good on this hero.
What a comedy of errors so far, and yet, even still, Kratos are not completely thrown out. Yes, they back up. Yes, they don't want to contest.
Not everybody.
Down a man. Not everyone, though. I
At all?
like this. Let's see. Gimme that Charlie Niner. No, they're being smart about it. They're staying on the cart. But you hope. Sometimes you hope.
I was hoping for a sneaky pulse bomb, a cheeky one, but everybody wasn't close enough to make that happen.
And the only people there were the tanks, and they survive those now. So yeah, good for him to hold it, I think. And now getting into this engage and pushing the cart. I mean, there's a chance. There's a chance. This is not over yet for Kratos, and they are fighting for their lives.
They're fighting for their contenders' lives. They've got to win this next fight. This is maybe last fight territory for them. We're at 47 seconds. Out will come the EMP. Akash will throw down that bubble to split off one. Borkin goes down. Disaster striking for Kratos once again.
Just backing away as quickly as they can, but Infamous only used the EMP for that. They have such a huge advantage, and they're being smart. They're not getting greedy, even with this little time in the bank. They say, we are not giving you even the chance at a map 5. We want to go to contenders. And they are playing, oh no, Ultimate Web, just, the train is not stopping anytime soon for these guys. 15 seconds now on the clock.
Not even going to give them a chance. Have the Primal Rage ready. 10 seconds left. Kratos seeing this maybe as the end for their chance to get into contenders. They've got to go through a nano-boosted Winston in Akash, who's forcing them into that room. They just get the touch in for overtime. Get together back as a team once again. Self-destruct thrown in the air by Gummy. Not going to find anything. Use of the EMP by default, but it's not going to be enough. Already going down. They've got themselves that use of the Fix ultimate, not getting anything there. EMP coming out from far instead. And Kratos slowly watches as their players go aside, and Infamous will win themselves this game, this map, and their spot in contenders.
I mean, there's not much more to say, right? We started off I personally was hyping up Kratos a little bit because I really like their story. I like how they've been playing. I like the adaptations they've been making. I like this team. But Infamous, proving it doesn't matter if you've been scrimming Overwatch League teams or how good your comms are. The adaptations in Overwatch can be so overt or so subtle. And they're showing us today they didn't need to change their composition hardly at all over the course of that entire series. They only had to switch up the way they played, their philosophy towards their offense or their defense or anything like that, and just the flexibility allowed, by the Echo, who can become literally anyone, or by the Winston, who can choose when to engage or be offensive or defensive. It's just this composition allows for so many different flavors, and Kratos just didn't seem prepared for that. The adaptations they tried to implement just weren't enough, despite being the more overt adaptations of sorts, right? Swapping up entire compositions, swapping up heroes to try and counter the Echo, the Sombra a little more, but just not enough, unfortunately. They will stay in Trials, and Infamous are moving on up.
And we're going to have an interview with one of those players from the Victorious team and now this Contenders team in Infamous. So don't go anywhere. We'll have that for you in just a moment. We're back here on Contenders Trials North America, Labasco and Thibbledork. We're being joined now from the Victorious Infamous. It is going to be Kitty King. Congrats again on getting into Contenders. And it was funny because you were like, "Yep, I was playing Brig," but the Brig worked out pretty well for you guys.
Yeah. Shout out to Revival. We played them and they played this comp. We thought it was pretty good, so we picked it. And we almost beat him with it. And now I don't know, it worked pretty well. Shout out to them.
Hey, man. Sometimes picking up adaptations from your enemies is the best way to go about it.
Yeah, it beat Curtis the first time. No reason it can't do it again.
Fair. I like it. So you guys have spent a bit of time here in Trials, kind of hanging out. We were just talking about this before the interview started. How does it feel now? Like, what was the team reaction to finally, oh man, we made it? How are you guys feeling?
I think we're all really excited because for some of our players, it's their first time in Contenders. And for others of us, we've been in Trials for 2 or 3 months due to some unfortunate circumstances. So it feels good to just get back up into Contenders and show what we can do against the big.
Sure, for sure. Do you have anyone in particular, any team that you're looking forward to facing now that you're up in the big leagues?
I think we want a rematch against Revival because we lost and we choked. And we want to show that we can beat them.
Okay.
Show that we're better at their own comp.
It's definitely a close game. And that's actually a really good point. Now that you're using their comp, let's see how that shakes out. That could be pretty good. Lobo, what are
How
you
mu-
thinking? Got any questions here?
I was gonna say, how much time do you give yourself to celebrate before it's back to the grind? Because yeah, you got out of trials, but now you've got the beast of contenders to deal with.
Hmm. We'll do like a 1 day break and then it's back to grinding. You can't stop.
It's definitely one that I'm excited to see. The meta still doesn't seem perfect yet, but this composition, like, why does this work so well right now, and especially for you guys?
Um, in my opinion, it isn't actually like a very good comp. I think
Hmm.
the I think the standard comp that Kratos is playing is the better comp. But what happens is that Kratos has to play it perfectly with no mistakes in order to beat our comp. So in a perfect neutral, if they can do that, they'll win. But we can make mistakes and still win because our comp is just cheesy.
I like the honesty though. That's the best part about it. But you, you got in. That's all that matters at this point,
It
right?
worked.
Yeah, and I mean historically, a lot of times compositions that were starting to counter goats or something like that were just the compositions that you could cheese out on. So cheese has always been a valid strat here in Overwatch. It's nothing to be ashamed of in my eyes. Um, all right. Any last shout outs, call outs, acknowledgments you want to make? Trash you want to talk?
Oh
Hit
yeah,
us with it.
shout out to our aim coach Josh. He's really helped everybody in the team out.
Okay, good
That's
deal.
awesome.
Lobo, anything else?
No, I think that's it for us. Congrats again, Kitty King, on getting into contenders, and good luck the rest of the way. We'll definitely be watching.
Thank you.
That's
Thank you,
going to
man.
do it here for us. Thank you so much for watching. It's been a fun way for this one to end. Congrats again to Infamous. They have found themselves into contenders by winning a hard fought game against Kratos. Thibble, any final thoughts from you?
I mean, just as we predicted, that match was pretty stellar. It went maybe a little differently than I expected. It started getting more and more decisively one-sided, perhaps. But I think Kratos, this has kind of been their reality for a bit, and I don't think it will slow them down too much. I still think they're a great team. I still think they're contenders level, but they're going to need to go to the
Right.
drawing room and just kind of review, see how they, maybe they got cheesed out. Maybe they just got outplayed a bit, but this is a great chance for them to learn from some mistakes and come back even stronger. So I'm really excited for that. And then, of course, Infamous. I mean, the team of the hour here in Group B. A great opportunity for them. Some great storylines coming up. You've got players coming into contenders for the very first time. You have a great rematch potentially coming up against Revival with their own composition. That should be pretty spicy. I mean, this next season of contenders is looking pretty good. I am pretty pleased.
It's going to be a spicy season of contenders. It's also going to be a spicy tournament in the Trial of Champions. Again, want to remind you about that one. $3,000 prize pool. The first third-party event officially part of the Path to Pro. Signups for Tier 3 teams are open. It starts October 14th. elohell.gg/TOC if you want to get in on that. There are contenders trial spots that are open in that as well. So that's part of why it's important, not just the money part of it too. And of course, thank you for watching. Thanks to our production team for making this one possible. Night of Nye was the one who was making everything happen as far as in game. Cinzia was our producer. Thanks to my partner Thibble, and of course, thank you for watching. That's going to do it for this season of Contenders Trials NA for October, but there's still more left to go. So we'll see you in the next one.